Today we have Tana Franko talking about her tales from an agile content ops frontier.
All right. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for being present here with me today. I'm excited to talk to you about the tales from an agile content operations frontier. A little bit of background on myself. I have been working for Cisco Systems for about 23 years, and 3/4 of my career here has been in technical writing. And I have recently transitioned in the past, I guess it's been a little over a year, into a new role on the content operations team. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what has felt like kind of a grand experiment for us and how it came about. This is meant to be accompanying my description of myself, but I am currently the leader of the content operations team here at Cisco. And thank you to Charlotte, by the way, for reaching out and asking me to come speak to you today. I think, touched base back in January this year. I had been a speaker at Write the Docs, so Charlotte was familiar with me having done some talking and invited me to speak to you all. And it's been interesting trying to pull together this little discussion of how our team has formed and what we've been up to. So this is the abstract, and I've just pulled some keywords out of the abstract to talk about the skill sets that we came together with this team to form the process that we've been using, which is agile-ish, and I'll go into all of this in more detail. What we've been doing to strive to be more data-driven in our organization and move toward new models of delivering our content. And then just how the team operates as a fully remote global team that's very close-knit and with a strong culture. This all started with an already established technical writing team. We had about 80 people in our organization under different managers, all doing technical writing, and some of them slowly migrated into different roles doing support and information architecture. And out of that came increasing needs to have a team that could really handle some of the non-writing tasks in a more focused, strategized way. The writers use DITA, Darwin Information Typing Architecture, to author topic-based help that is published both as longer form administration guides for administrator audiences that are highly technical, and shorter, more digestible articles that go on the WebEx Help Center. A lot of those are for the end user persona, not all of them. There's a mixture of partners and administrators and end users. And then, as I said, we had multiple writing teams under multiple managers, all trying to develop consistent voice, style, tone, writing approaches, and use tools that in some cases were not ideal for the workflows that we were trying to accomplish as writers. So the vision here was to come up with a specialized team who could focus on really giving the training, guidelines, and support for all of these multiple writing teams writing for different personas, and ensuring that our customers are really getting more of a seamless experience from our help. This team actually started with a manager of one of the writing teams who was experienced in pulling together teams. She had some control over who was on the team, so she actually pulled in somebody that she'd worked with earlier on the company with one skill set and kind of looked for people who were interested in the other skill sets, and sold it to management to really start this team from scratch. And what we brought to the table was really a diverse set of skill sets. And it has been actually a really amazing experiment and just a really amazing experience for all of us to start from nothing and see how this is all built up. I'm going to go into some of these skill sets. So we have a strategist on our team who was really drawn toward looking at how our content was performing from a site-wide perspective. This individual had experience at Microsoft working with really large content sets for products and measuring how content was performing, doing a lot of systems thinking, doing a lot of planning about what governance should look like for how our workflows work across different teams who are authoring different content, site design experience, and good skills with communicating upwards. So the skills that you need to communicate with other technical writers and other managers at your level can be very different from the communication skills that you need when you are describing what the content teams are doing with management. In a lot of cases, the technical writing function at a big company like Cisco can get moved around from department to department. So the executives don't actually necessarily understand the challenges around content creation, the value that content brings to our products, and the great work in some cases and innovative work that goes on within technical writing teams. So those are all things that the strategist really brought to the table to be able to move us in new directions on those. And then I think all of us came with good collaboration skill sets, but they've certainly been challenged by creating a new team and taking on new roles. An information architect, the manager brought on an information architect that she had worked with before, who had experience building content models, building up taxonomy, doing site design, and then teamwork is a big piece of this as well, because with so many writers, to be able to pull in the consistency and get everyone on the same page is a big skill for information architecture. The information architect also had migration experience at Cisco. So we have gone through several changes in our publishing systems. We have a publishing system that is used not only by technical writers, but by marketing. It is massive. I think when we adopted it, we were told that we were the largest deployment of this tool from Adobe Experience Management at the time. So it comes with its own set of challenges. And so this individual had been present for that migration. And we had a migration of our own planned that I'll talk about a little bit more to meet our needs better for how our content needs to be published. So that was an important skill set to bring into this team. And then troubleshooting skills for the migration is a big thing, and being able to communicate and really program manage a lot of changes that need to happen in a short amount of time to get writers from one tool set and publishing system to another. And then training falls in with all of this to be able to pull along a large set of writers and get everyone on the same page. And some ways that we have done that, and this individual's experience with doing this, were formal trainings, which we record for, because we are a truly global team. So it's very difficult to find a time slot that will work for everyone. So we do have to leverage recordings and try to do multiple trainings in some cases so that we can get in the QA component, but some of the stuff has to happen asynchronously. And then office hours where people can drop in with their questions, and then wikis and other instructional trainings that people can look at their leisure. We also had a content engineer and support person who is skilled at helping people troubleshoot, really understanding all of the issues that people are running into and pulling them together into a set that we can communicate with the people who are actually responsible for making fixes when there's issues with, say, the migration, being able to structure and categorize content and to be on the same page with the information architect or have the same information architecture skills are big parts of our content engineer role. Being able to align the technology that we're using to what the strategist is proposing in terms of strategy is a big skill for content engineering. And then there's a lot of different moving parts and pieces and programs to juggle. So juggling and collaborating are skills that are important for the content engineer. We also, as part of this content operations team, the manager pulled in a graphics person that we had on our team who's built a sub-team of graphics designers and media authors who can create visuals for our content. So initially we would have writers creating their own visuals, but over time this team has evolved to take over most of the visual work for the writers. Writers can still create their own visuals if they'd like to, but we've since brought in a motion video professional, and it's really great skill set to bring in with the design skills and really collaborate with writers to make the content both visually instructive and work with the text. So the visuals add to the article, but don't replace content that needs to be there and accessible to all. Similar skills as far as juggling a lot of projects. And the teamwork, we actually have this graphics sub-team functions as a smaller unit within the larger team. So they use a lot of the same processes, but they also have extended processes for how they plan and execute the work that they're doing to support the authors. I came onto the team with a data focus because that was an area that I was really interested in. I can't say that I had a great deal of skills under my belt in the area of processing data, but what I came with was curiosity, I think patience, because it's been a big lift in a lot of cases to sort through the data that we have, figure out what's useful, what needs work, what questions to ask, what questions we want to answer with data. And then humility, because it's really taken everyone on the team to make progress in this area. I work a lot with the strategist who does a lot of the data work as well. And then I'd say interest in using Excel was a big thing. We use Excel for a lot of functions in the team at this point, not only within how we measure content, but some of the other functions that we're doing to support the authors. So that's what we started with. And over the course of the year, we've taken on a lot of different projects, and the main services. So this is, I had recently put together just a thought board of all of the things that we had done for the team over the course of the year plus. So planning and strategy has been a big one as we are working on a big content migration, and training internal documentation has been a big one. There was a big push to really clean up our voice, style, and language governance, our product names, our taxonomy. That's all ongoing, and training has been a big part of that. The graphics and media creation is a part of what the team provides. So the editorial governance is the brand, voice, style, language. There's been a really big push to clean all of that up over the year. Authoring and publishing support is ongoing. We have inventory management because we've published thousands of articles on the help site, and we have longer form books published to Cisco.com. And we really didn't have a good way to find ownership of an article, track the things that needed to be done to a body of content as a whole. Say we needed to re-tag or tag content with a particular metadata value. We didn't really have a way to collect a group of content that was very simple to use and could be updated by anybody on the team. So that's been one of the big pieces that we've taken on as part of this migration as well. And then we have also been working on a guild model, which I'll talk about a little bit later. As far as process, so we started out with an idea of some of the things that we wanted to work on. And in order to organize our work, we decided to run an Agile-ish process. So the components of Agile that we've really been using are the structure, the idea of iterative groupings of work product, and the idea that we could organize ourselves. We don't really have like a product owner leader, but we are all a team who's looking at what our next chunk of work is that we need to take on, that we're looking at our priorities together, and we can really back each other in the sense of a Scrum team that people take on. You know, if someone can't take on something that's critical, someone else on the team can pick it up. We are using Jira to track our work products. So we have user stories. We have a hierarchy of epics and user stories, where a user story is a piece of work that we think we can complete in 1 2-week sprint. And Jira provides us with a Kanban board that lets us visualize what the sprint looks like and where we're at in it, and kind of limit the focus to what that sprint is. So we don't have to look at all of the backlog or the things that are coming down the pike. We can really focus on our current priorities. And it helps us communicate with each other what the flow of the work that we're doing is. We don't have a product owner, so we don't have fixed roles, but we do have epics or groupings of epics that say the information architect has a larger umbrella work product, and that's split up into different epics, and it's split up into different user stories under an epic, so that we can do kind of longer range, larger projects that are broken up into smaller pieces. This is a snapshot of the very simple Kanban board that we have with the tickets for the individual owners. And then there's stuff that we haven't started yet for the sprint. There's what's in progress, and then what's done for the sprint. Jira provides this ability to create a Kanban board from your team's user stories. And we have some rituals around doing planning at the start of each sprint. We have a backlog that we occasionally, as needed, will take the time to sort of repopulate, thinking about what might be coming down the road, or we'll just add to the backlog as things come up if we don't need to do more of a focused backlog creation. And then at the beginning of each sprint, we pull from the backlog to choose the stories that we're going to work on over the course of the sprint. At the end of the sprint, we have a review meeting. We just do stand-ups once a week to kind of get on the same page about what's in progress and what might need to be handed off. And the sprint review, we do make sure all the stories are closed or moved to the next sprint if they need to be. And we do demos if there's anything that we have, something that we could demonstrate what we worked on for the rest of the team, so they understand what the work was, and can give comments or suggestions for what the next steps could be. And then we do retrospectives. So we talk about what went well, what could be improved, etc. And I'll show a little bit of those as well. One of the things that we spent some time thinking about is how we were going to estimate the size of the work products, the user stories that we're creating in our backlog and pulling into our sprints. So we looked at a couple of options that we had available to us in Jira. One of those is t-shirt sizing, where you sort of give a guesstimate of how much work you think something is going to take. So the idea of a t-shirt size is just a really rough estimate that's kind of in comparison to other things. It's easy to understand, and it's a good way to get into estimation if you're not used to it. It can be good for long-term planning, because if you don't have a really good sense of how much effort something is going to be ahead of time, you can just give this best effort guesstimate that you can refine later. It's difficult to work with in the sense that you can't really calculate capacity, like how much time you have for the sprint versus a set time that you think it's going to take to complete the stories. So it's not easy to do mathematics on. And then it can be a little bit subjective from person to person versus something like a story point, which would be a more agreed on unit of measurement. There's different feelings about whether this should be measured in units of time specifically, but the pros there are it gives you more of a calculable number. It, as we understand it, is meant to be relative to the work you've already done. So it kind of takes into account how long it takes you based on similar previous efforts. And a pro for us would be that our graphics sub team is working this way. They have a pretty advanced Jira backlog collection system, and they're using this to really parcel out their time pretty accurately. And the cons are it's a little bit harder for folks to start out using this type of an approach. So this is a methodology that came from the Button conference. We had an attendee there, and the speaker was talking about Jira and capacity planning. And we liked this model because it took into account multiple factors or criteria to determine the sizing. One of them being how much collaboration does it take to get this product done. So this was just a nice thought experiment, like how can we inform our sizing based on some of these other criteria besides just like how much time does one person think it's going to take to do this. So that's some of our process. Our process is evolving over time, and a big part of that is the retrospective. So there are a lot more advanced Scrum and Agile processes that you can develop too, but we've sort of been working with what works for us as a team right now, given our limited bandwidth for actually the process of the Agile rituals and whatnot. But the retrospective is just a really quick thing that we do at the end of each sprint. So we get a star rating of how successful we were, and then what we did well, what we learned, and what we can improve. I've gone back and just kind of, we use a tool called Slido to do our retrospectives, and it allows you to export all the answers to Excel. So that got imported into Miro, which is a whiteboarding tool. And so I was able to just kind of group things that we had answered over time, get a longer term picture of what's working and what we're learning and what's not working. So this is for us to do a bit of a longer look back retrospective. So on to some of the charters of the team. One of the things we wanted to do was support the larger content organization in being more data driven. So we have a set of Power BI reports and dashboards that tell us how our content is performing. It gives us things like how many visitors are viewing an article, what search terms are being used, volume across the site. But it really didn't have a program manager or an owner in terms of how usable the reporting was. So it has been a big effort with the strategist and this team to clean that up and make it usable for the content teams. It informs as well the metadata work that we're doing so that we can really understand which content is intended for a particular product line. We're supporting quite a few product lines, and the tagging that we've been doing as authors wasn't really set up for reporting purposes. So you could easily see like this product is performing this way on our help site, and this product is performing that way. So how the content is performing has been a large part of what the team has looked at in terms of data. Tool surveys are another area. So part of this CMS migration that we're doing was to move off of the larger publishing system that Cisco is using that was not designed necessarily for our use cases. As I said, the marketing writers use it. All of the tech writers at Cisco have access to it. So there are quite a few different teams that publish to it. And as such a large system, it had become really unwieldy to use in terms of like storing graphics and locating content. It really doesn't support the next generation delivery models that we're looking at, like being able to have in-app help that pulls together, say, all of the new features that we're writing about. So right now we have someone will create a help article start to finish with this is all the new features for this product line, but we don't have any way to programmatically pull that content. So all of that is part of our next generation content strategy. So surveying the writers on the pain points that they're experiencing with the tools as we work on these tools migrations so that we can spend our energy not only making sure that we get to tools that work for the content needs that we have, but also that are usable for the writers themselves. The reliability of all of the data that we have coming in has been something that we've had to program manage, because a lot of cases from the help site, things were instrumented in such a way that they weren't necessarily, the data that we were collecting wasn't necessarily tested or verified for accuracy. So this has been a big part of content operations, is verifying and making sure that our page data is accurate and working for us. And then just strategy as far as what data questions do we want to answer with our data? Where can we use data to inform the direction that we're taking? Future delivery is what I have gone into a little bit previously, but the CMS migration is a big part of our strategy to get to next generation content. So we have a team that is responsible for engineering our help site. We had selected a vendor to be our CMS for the help site. And so there is a team at the vendor that we work with, and we've been doing triage and program management between our engineering team and the vendor to really define the requirements for next generation content and how the moving parts will fit together. At the same time, we're working with the writers to define how our content will work for next generation content. So part of that has been a taxonomy overhaul that we're in the process of doing, really looking at all of the metadata categories that we're surfacing to users, what they are useful for as far as user use cases, and then internal use cases, because we have some taxonomy that supports things like our inventory and our ability to report on how our content is doing internally. And all of this is really to get us to next generation content that really serves our users in new ways that we currently can't provide with our sort of static articles and longer form books that are published to Cisco.com. As far as our team, I've mentioned that we are a close-knit team, and our habits and our rituals, which start out with Agile, but also extend to just the rituals that we do at the start of our weekly meetings. We start off appreciating things that others on the team have done for us over the course of the week. And we know that the team has our back. I think it came out of really the appreciations. When you see that people acknowledge that what you're doing has an impact on them, you feel safer being able to fall back on someone if you have to drop the ball on something. I mean, it happens. We've all gone through a global pandemic. Most people have been sick or had to take care of a sick family member at some point. We've had natural disasters, etc. And we really just verbally reinforce the culture on a regular basis that we have each other's back and that we appreciate each other. And then another thing is that we're all very direct. Like, we are not afraid to disagree with each other, suggest a new direction, or kind of have a rumble, just like, okay, I'm kind of in the throes of this. This is hard for me. I can't express this clearly, but I think this is important. Just that level of comfort with each other that I think, again, comes out of really appreciating each other on a regular basis. It started out early on with this manager. One of the first meetings that we had, I can remember going over a spreadsheet of work that I had done, and it felt like the manager was micromanaging and nitpicking, and I just kind of like fell apart. Like, it doesn't feel like you trust me at all on this. So that kind of just like being able to express our genuine selves and what we're going through, I think opened the door to have a more close-knit culture as we're doing this content operations model, which was really new. We didn't know when we started if we were going to be supported in this. We've since had some difficult budget decisions to be made, and the team was maintained because it's now seen as critical to the operations. I remember the manager saying, "We cannot fail at this." And that was another rumble opportunity. From my perspective, we had to be able to fail. Like, failure has to be on the table, because we're not going to be perfect. We're not going to succeed in everything, but we do have to acknowledge to ourselves what's working and what's not working. And that's part of the retrospective and part of that courageous culture. I put a Brene Brown quote in here because Brene Brown is one of my favorites. Shame researcher. Courage starts with showing up and letting ourselves be seen. And I think this has been a really big part of this team. We're all new at this. We bring these diverse skills to the table, and we're really stronger when we can look at our failures and our learnings and our successes together and add to them with our individual colors, I guess. We are a global and remote team, and we've always been. We have folks in the US and Canada and in Ireland. And I credit our company for really placing an emphasis on having strong teams. It's part of our culture to really be able to show up as your authentic self. At a huge company, it's hard to roll something out like that. I think the executives do their best to promote that culture, but it really varies from team to team. And just starting out on this foot where, yeah, some of this stuff is difficult and unknown, and it just takes patience or humility or courage. has really helped us come through the pandemic as a close-knit team. And then I mentioned the guilds. The guilds are an attempt to be able to extend our reach into the writing team. So if a writer has an interest in, say, editorial governance, we have a style guild where they can participate. It's run by a content operations person. So basically the meeting hygiene, creating regular meetings and making sure that minutes are distributed and action items are clear to the people who are taking them on. That's all handled by content operations, but it gives our writers a chance to grow in directions that they're interested in. We have a data guild as well that lets people dive into the content analytics for their particular writing area. And that the guilds have just been an incredible opportunity to extend our team without having those resources dedicated to our team, because the writers all have their own sets of innovative and creative ways of looking at, say, what content we want or what data we want to look at for our content and what we're going to do about it. We've run a couple of stretch assignments where we pull in people from outside of the content teams. We had one that was a journey map that the strategist ran, where they just went through one very specific customer journey and what help did they find along the way and what were the pain points. And then we had another data science one to look at models for our search data so that we could group them into the intents that users had when they were searching for data, so we could get a really categorized sense of what people were looking for in terms of help. So these, I would say being on the content operations team has been exciting, and there are probably a lot of writers who would like to have those kinds of roles, but we couldn't pull everyone into content operations. But guilds has been a great way to give them the opportunity to grow in those ways and also contribute in those ways. So, taking over time too here, I apologize, y'all, but I'm wrapping up here. What will carry us forward from here? Really the culture that we've established and the practices that we maintain to keep that culture going strong. I feel like even though we don't know necessarily what the next challenges are down the road, even from a month-to-month basis, we're doing quarterly planning at this point, but there are always fires to put out, but these things are helping us to keep this attitude of continuous improvement and having the courage to try new things and take new directions.
Thank you very much, Tana. I will jump in just to offer a little bit of info for the end of the recording here with some stuff that's also happening with the ISTC. To let you guys know, we do have a podcast. The current one is a conversation, interview conversation all about technical writing and just people nerding about how awesome it is. So do check that out. And next month, I'm very pleased I can tell you that Paul Backer is going to be with us. That's going to be back at our usual lunchtime slot. And it's all about law for technical communicators.